Hello, it's Sonia here, The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today we are going to be making an ear warmer, and I am using my J hook or 6mm hook, and I have already started my chain. This is number 5 yarn, and it's a Premier Just Chunky yarn. It's some leftover, so I hope I have enough. But you could also use number 4 yarn, and that would result in a slightly smaller ear warmer. So I have already made one here, and this is number 4 yarn, but I still use the same hook. I wanted a slightly bigger one as I'm making this for donation, as people have different size head shapes, and it's super soft yarn, and I think it'll work out really well with this yarn. I just hope I have enough. So let's get started for row 1. This is made in rows. So in the second chain from our hook, we're working in that back bump. We are going to slip stitch, and we're going to slip stitch all the way across. So you're going to chain 73. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. We're chaining 73, and now we are slip stitching across our chain in the back bump of the chain, and you just want to make sure that your slip stitches don't get too tight. And we will have 72 slip stitch at the end of row 1. And row 1 will be the right side of our work. Okay, so I've worked my 72 slip stitch, so it's going to be hairy with this yarn. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough, so I might end up having to switch to a different yarn, but we're going to give it a shot. So let's begin row 2. So row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we are going to be working in the back loops here, and we're going to slip stitch in that first stitch in the back loop, and we're going to slip stitch 5 more times, so we're going to have 6 slip stitch. So we have our six slip stitch. So row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. This is a right side row. So in that first stitch in that back loop, we are going to work a slip stitch. The second stitch, we're going to work a single crochet, again in the back loop. The next stitch is going to be a half double crochet. The next one is a double crochet. And we're going to work another double crochet. And then our last stitch is a triple crochet. So we are getting to work all of the basic crochet stitches. If you know all these stitches, you can pretty much crochet anything. All right, so there is row 3. So let's begin row 4. Row 4, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to slip stitch in that first stitch and across the next 5 stitches. So we'll have a total of 6 slip stitch here. All right, so now we're going to continue across. So we're going to do, as I call, a combined slip stitch. So in this loop here, kind of see it's like a little nub that sticks out from row 3. You want to insert your hook into that nub there, and then we're going to insert our hook into the very next stitch on our main part here. So we're kind of basically working this in like a bunch of short rows here. All right, so now we're going to do a slip stitch here. So I call it a combined slip stitch because it just kind of combines this part of the ear warmer to this part as well, and it just looks a little more seamless. All right, so now we need to work 5 more slip stitch, so we will have worked a total of 12 because we started working here and going down. So I was talking, lost track of my count. I'm going to double check to make sure it's 12. Oh, I worked an extra one. Okay, so let's begin row 5, chaining 1, turning our work. Okay, so our first stitch is going to be a slip stitch right in that back loop. So if you're having trouble, I always say to turn your work so you can see, sorry, bumped the camera, sorry about that. So you can see the tops of your stitches, and that helps you to know where to work. So it looks like a chain, so we're going to work in that back loop. So our second stitch is going to be a single crochet. And then we are working a half double crochet. Now we work 2 double crochet in the next one in each of the next 2 stitches. So there's that first double crochet, and then here is the second one. And now we are working 2 triple crochet. Didn't yarn over twice. And now we're going to work 2 double crochet. So our next stitch is a half double crochet. So we're kind of descending. Right now we ascended. In the beginning we were going up, and now we're making the stitches smaller. So now we're going to single crochet, and our last stitch is a slip stitch. For row 5, this is a right side row. Alright, so row 6, we are going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to slip stitch in that first stitch, and we're going to continue to slip stitch all the way across these 12 stitches. So we should have a total of 12 slip stitch. And again, just watch your tension, that doesn't get too tight. You can definitely be a little bit more relaxed. That's the nice thing with slip stitch. Okay, so we have worked our 12 slip stitch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do that combined slip stitch. So you're going to find that nub here at the end. So right there. And we're going to go in the next stitch of the main part. And so now we work that slip stitch, and we're going to work 5 more. So for this row, we actually have a total of 18 slip stitch that we worked. So let's begin row 7. We are going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to repeat row 5. So that would be our first stitch. We're working a slip stitch. Our second one is that single crochet. Third stitch is a half double crochet, all in the back loop. Fourth and fifth stitch are double crochet. And our sixth stitch and seventh stitch will be the triple crochet, and all in the back loop. So this pattern is worked entirely in the back loop, except when you're doing, well, yeah, even when you're doing the combined slip stitch there. Okay, so that's stitch 7. So stitch 8 and 9 are going to be double crochet. Stitch 10 is a half double crochet. Stitch 11 is a single crochet, and stitch 12 is a slip stitch, and we're going to leave the rest of these stitches not worked. Just gonna let them hang out. All right, so row 8, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and we are going to work 12 slip stitch. Okay, so that's stitch 12, and again, all in that back loop. Now we work that combined slip stitch. So just put it in that little nub and then go back into the main part and work that combined slip stitch, and now we worked 5 more, so we're going to have a total of 18 again. And we chain 1 and turn. So what we're going to do is you're going to be repeating rows 7 and 8 for rows up to row 26. So we are on row 9, so row 9, you're going to be repeating row 7, which we did here, and then your next row is going to be your even row, and that's where you work the slip stitch in the back loop, you work your combined slip stitch, and then you slip stitch 5 more, so you'll have a total of 18. So you're going to keep doing that to row 26, so that's going to put you all the way to the end here. So we're working all these short little rows, and you know, we're just slowly working across to create our ear warmer. So I'm going to meet you back at the end of row 26. All right, so we finished up row 26. So to begin row 27, you're going to want to chain 4. So I'm going to churn our work. So now you can see how we're looking here. We work to the end of the row. So this chain 4 is going to count as a triple crochet. And then the next stitch, again, still working in the back loops, we're going to work that double crochet. So that is stitch 2. Stitch 3 is going to be another double crochet. Stitch 4 is a half double crochet. Stitch 5 is a single crochet. And stitch 6 is a slip stitch for row 27. And then rows 28 through 30, we are going to slip stitch. So we're going to work 3 rows of slip stitch. So you chain 1, turn your work. We're again still working in that back loop, and we slip stitch, and we just continue to slip stitch across. And then you're going to repeat that. So this is 28, row 29 you'll slip stitch, and row 30. So you also want to slip stitch on top of that chain 4 because it does count as a stitch. So I'm going to work my other 2 rows of slip stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of row 30. Okay, so let's begin row 31. We're going to chain 4 and turn our work. Again, that's going to count as a triple crochet. And then our next stitch, so we don't want to work in here because that means, because we've already, that counts as a stitch there. So you're going to go to the next one, work that double crochet, and then we're going to work another double crochet, half double crochet in the next stitch, single crochet into the next one, and we're going to work that slip stitch in that next stitch. Gets a little crunch sometimes. Okay, so now we need to work again back into the main part here. So what we're going to do next is what I call is a long combined slip stitch. So we're going to work on the ends of these rows. So the next nub, you're going to insert your hook into that nub, and then you're going to insert your hook into the next one, and then we're going to go into the main part of our row and insert your hook. So you're going to have 4 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and do a slip stitch through all 4 of those loops like that. So that is called the long combined slip stitch. So now we need to work 5 more slip stitch. So we're going to have 12 slip stitch all together that we worked. All right, so row 32, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to work 12 slip stitch. So slip stitch in that back loop in that first stitch and just continue across. Okay, so I finished up row 32, and you do want to make sure you slip stitch on top of that chain 4. So let's begin row 33. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. So 33, we are going to slip stitch in that first stitch. So again, just look for that back loop. Stitch 2 is going to be a single crochet. 3 is the half double crochet. 4 and 5 are double crochet. Stitch 6 is the triple crochet, and 7. Stitch 8 is, and 9 will be double crochet. Stitch 10 is half double crochet, and 11 is single crochet, 12 is a slip stitch, and we're going to work that long combined slip stitch again. So just look at the ends of the rows here. So insert your hook in that, it just looks like a little nub, little bump there. So there's one, and then the next bump, and then you're going to go into the main part. So you have your 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. And it just gives it a cleaner look there. And we're going to slip stitch in the next 5. And now we chain 1 and turn our work. So row 34 through 51, we're going to be repeating rows 32 and 33. So 32, we will slip stitch across 12 stitches, and then the row 33 is the row we just completed, where you work the 12 stitches here, and then you work the long combined slip stitch, and then the 5 there. So you're going to be doing that for 51 rows. So this is row 34. So rows 34 through 51, you're just going to repeat rows 32 and 33. So I will meet you back. Okay, so you can see we have different yarn because I was playing yarn chicken and I lost. And I do want to correct, and I'll have put it already on the screen. I believe I said to work 51 rows, but it's actually 53. So we have our 53 rows. So now we need to work row 54. So we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. So we're on the wrong side, and we are going to slip stitch in 6 stitches. So we have our 6 stitches, and again working in that back loop. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work for row 55. So our first stitch is going to be a slip stitch. Our second one will be a single crochet. Our third stitch will be half double crochet. And now I need to work 2 double crochet. So stitch 4 and 5 are double crochet. And then our last stitch for row 55 here is a triple crochet. Alright, so we're getting there with this project, and it actually works up pretty quickly, I think. Okay, so now we need to work row 56. So we're going to chain 1, turn our work. So we are going to slip stitch in the first 5 stitches, working again in that back loop. Or actually 6, I'm sorry, not 5 stitches. 6 stitches. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work that combined slip stitch. So we're working on that little nub right here at the end. You're going to insert your hook in there, and then we're going to go to that next stitch, and we're going to work that slip stitch. So you can see we have the 3 loops on our hook, and we are going to work 5 more. For a total of 6 here. And we're going to repeat that across. So we've worked that, we're going to work that combined slip stitch again. So insert your hook in that little nub, and then insert your hook into that next stitch in the back loop, work that slip stitch, and then continue across. So at the end of row 56, you will have 72 stitches, and then row 57, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and you're going to slip stitch all the way across, working in that back loop. But we're not going to cut our yarn. We're getting close to turning this into an ear warmer. So I'm going to finish up row 56 here, then I'm going to work row 57, and I will meet you back. Okay, so I finished up row 57 here. So we've got both edges done, so now we need to turn this into an ear warmer. So how we're going to do that is we're going to work on the edges of this row here. So I'm just going to turn, so I have my right side facing. Actually, I'm going to do it like that because it's going to fall off my desk. And what we're going to do is we are going to work 12 slip stitch across. So I'm just jumping in, working on the edges. So as you can see, we have a bit of a gap here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this triple crochet and this stitch. So I'm just going to grab a loop here. So I'm just eyeballing it, and just a loop there, and working a slip stitch. So this is my stitch 2. So as you can see, that kind of seals it up. Then I'm just going to go back on the edge of that stitch, 3, and I'm kind of working loosely. You can see I'm pulling up my hook a little bit. So I don't want them too tight. I don't want to create tension. So we have 8 stitches so far, so I'm going to do 9. So what I'm going to do is, again, you can see it's kind of separating there. I'm going to insert my hook here, just grabbing a loop from that stitch, and then here. So I believe that's stitch 10, and then we have 2. sorry, my battery died. We just finished stitch 10, so we have 2 more to go. So here I'm just poking my hook in there, stitch 11, and then stitch 12. So we have our 12 stitches across. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. I'm going to work another row of slip stitch across, 12 slip stitch in that back loop. Okay, so we've worked our 12 across for row 2 of the edging here, so I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And so our first stitch here, we're going to work a slip stitch. Our second one will be a single crochet. Our third stitch is going to be a half double crochet. Stitches 4 and 5 are going to be double crochet. Stitch 6 is a half double crochet. Stitch 7 is a single crochet. Stitch is 8 through 12 are slip stitch. And we have a total of 12 stitches there. Okay, so let's begin row 4. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. So now we are going to slip stitch in the first 8 stitches. So, and still in the back loop. Okay, so we have 8 stitches and we're going to leave the last 4 not worked. All right, so row 5, chain 1, turn your work. We are almost done. Okay, so our first stitch for row 5, still in the back loop, is a slip stitch. Our second stitch is a single crochet. Third stitch is half double crochet. Stitches 4 and 5 are double crochet. Stitch 6 is half double crochet. Stitch 7 single crochet. Stitch 8 is a slip stitch, all in the back loop. All right, so let's work row 6 here. And we really are on the home stretch of this project. Okay, so we are going to slip stitch in that first stitch in the back loop. And we're going to slip stitch in the next 7, so we have a total of 8. Okay, so now we're going to work that combined slip stitch, so that little nub and the very next stitch. And we're going to continue across, so we're still going to have our 12. Okay, so now we need to cut our yarn. So here is our decorative little edge there. So we're going to cut our yarn. And you want to leave a tail, so I'm going to leave about 12 inches, I guess, because we actually have to do some sewing, which I usually don't like to sew, but for this project, we need to sew it for it to look its very, very best. Okay, so I had to find my yarn needle, got my yarn needle, I've threaded my yarn. So we are going to get started to turn this into an ear warmer. So as you can see with here, we're also going to do some finishing. So there's a little space there. So what I like to do to kind of just clean that up is to stick my needle here, thread it through, and it pulls it closed. Now we're going to take our project with the right sides facing, and you're going to line this part up like that, because we want to sew over this. So I'm going to show you one that I've already done, and this was with slightly more, this is a number 4 yarn, so you can see how I have sewed this guy across here, because you really want this to be visible, and then sewed on the other side there. So I've got my, so what I did was I took this side here, lined it up right there, and this side here. So we're going to start down here, and I'm just going to kind of tack it down through here. And you just want to be as neat as possible when you're sewing this so that your project can look its very, very best. So probably tack it down again. There we go. And then what I did was I actually worked in the center of these slip stitches, or actually might be better to work on the edges. So you're going to want to work on the edges here. So I'm going to poke my needle there. I'm not pulling super tight, and I'm just sewing. We don't want the front of the stitch messed up with our sewing. So with slip stitch, there's like whole bunches of sides. So this is actually not the top. This is like the side here. This is the front. So I'm working here. So I'm actually sewing on this like back loop right here. So we did that one. So I'm gonna go here. Poke my needle, and just gently sewing that and working across in each stitch. So I'm going to keep going across. It's a little easier to do it off camera until I get to here, and then I'll show you how we're going to finish this up. So I will meet you back. Okay, so I've stitched across here. So this is where we're at. We're over here. So what I want to do is, so you can see how it's spread apart there, I want it to look like, it's like, this reminds me of leaves, so I want it to look more like a leaf. So I'm going to poke my needle at the end here and at the end here, and I'm just going to cinch that closed with my yarn like that, so you can see how that's looking a little more leaf-like. And then you can see this kind of guy just popping out. So this is just finishing, just kind of eyeballing. So I'm just going to pop my needle in there to kind of join that guy closed like that. And I want this to be a little less separated, so again I'm just going to stick my needle in there to kind of cinch it close. So we have neatened that up there. So what we need to do to finish this up is, you can see we've got like a little flap. So what I ended up doing is I stitched this down. I tacked this down. So you can see on this one how this is all tacked down, and as I'm looking at it, I sewed this pretty neat and tidy. I don't like sewing, but I'm pretty good at it, as you can see. So I tacked this down nice and neat so it's not flopping around there. And this is going to be for donation. So I'm just going to take my needle here. Oops, tail's getting in the way. And get over here on this side. I just see like this stitch is a little bit loose, so I'm just going to tack that down. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so that's why I'm being really careful. So see, I just fixed that guy. So I'm just going to kind of take this end here and this end here, and I'm just going to tack it down, sew it across. Again, I'm not sewing tightly. I mean, I don't want it to be super loose, but I want this to look nice and neat. And hopefully I'll have enough yarn. I'm not sure if I left a big enough tail, but we'll give it a good shot. Give it a good try. And that's the key with finishing your project. Like, you can do the most beautiful stitching in the world, but if your finishing doesn't look nice, then, you know, it can really, you know, detract from the beauty of your work if your finishing isn't up to par. So just keep that in mind. You know, finishing can really set your project apart from looking, what is it, that homemade to handmade. Because some people give handmade things a bad rap, and I could see why if you haven't taken the time to, you know, do a really nice finishing with your project. Okay, so you can see I have sewed that flap, looks pretty good, and then I'll just need to weave in those ends, give it a light black, but I think that look gives it a cute decorative little finish. And so here it is with this yarn and the solid color. You can really see the stitch pattern pop out. I do need to give these a little bit of a bath. Something's spilled on this guy as I was working on it. It was a little, we had a little boo-boo, a little accident. So I'm gonna wash it and block it. And so I think this one's a little bit not as wide. I wished I had more of that really chunky yarn, so it was a little bit wider. But some people have small heads like myself, and you don't want a huge ear warmer. But I really like this project. I think it's really pretty. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.